Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, creatives from around the world. I'm Matthias Omatola, aka Major VFX, here at the Maxon booth at NAB NYC 2023, showcasing Maxon 1 and how artists are using it to create some of the phenomenal things that you see throughout broadcasts, video games, movies, you name it. Up next, we have our very own local artist here, Joe Herman. Woo!
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. So, today, what are we going to do today? Well, first of all, thanks, Matthias, and thanks, everybody, for coming here today. And we're going to look at Cinema 4D. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to basically do something like this, where we take a guy, and we're going to have him jump through a ring of fire, and then when he gets to the other side, he's going to do kind of like a little silly dance. So let's take a look at that again. Okay, so basically the way that we're going to do this is we are going to use several motion capture files for the animation of the guy that are going to be strung together and blended together using Cinema 4D's motion clip system. And then for the fire itself, we're going to be using Pyro, which is Cinema 4D's built-in fire and smoke simulation system. So let's without further ado, we'll look at it one more time, and then we're just going to jump into it. Okay, so before I begin, my name is Joe Herman. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Joe Herman Artist. I have a YouTube channel that I post some things on every once in a while, some about Cinema 4D and visual effects in general. It's Joe Herman or Legend Multimedia. I think if you type that in, you'll find my YouTube channel. And incidentally, by the way, I am also a musician and songwriter, and in 2 days on Spotify, I'll be having a new single come out, called Somewhere Near a Beach. So be sure to listen to that, if you would, and if you can follow me too. I actually did a whole animation with these headphones kind of coming down and spinning around on this beach thing. I'll post that after the video goes live, but don't forget, October 27th, Somewhere Near a Beach. So anyway, having said that, let's get started. So what I did at first is I basically, let's see, which one should we use? Well, person one. I'm using Mixamo. Who here has ever used Mixamo before? Few people. So we know what that is. Basically what Mixamo is it's a online library, free online library of motion capture files that you can use in your own projects. Now it seems like this is taking a long time, but basically I think I have an account. Where do we have I think I made an account. Actually, are we logged into the Creative Cloud, do you know? Or okay, whatever. Hold on a second. That's funny. I have one here. So basically, this is really slow, so our internet thing is kind of slow, so I'm not going to get too much into what Mixamo does, but it's a library of motion capture clips that you can download for free and use them in your own project. You can also download some of their characters and use them in your project, or you can upload your own characters and rig them in Mixamo as well if you don't want to do rigging. I'm not going to, I've already downloaded the motion clip stuff already, and this is being slow. So let's just get right into it. So to get the motion capture into Cinema 4D, we're going to go to the Objects menu, and we're going to say Merge Objects, okay? And somewhere on the desktop, we've got our stuff here. Okay, so these are the motion clip files, the motion capture files that I downloaded from Mixamo. We're going to start with this one first. It's the idle one. And we'll click OK. This is just FBX import settings. We're going to just leave them as their default. Okay. When it says, do you want to reassign included takes if you're downloading from Mixamo, always click no. Otherwise, something funny happens with the take system, and you don't want that. So just click no. And what happens is we get our first little motion capture file here. And the character, this character does come from Mixamo, and you can see there's a little animation. He's just sort of standing there and he's like breathing, okay? Now what happened is that he's also totally black, and the thing is that that's because the material that came from Mixamo, the translation is, it kind of gets a little bit funny, so we're just going to clean that up a little bit. We're just going to get rid of these two, and that's going to fix the problem in the material. So we have this guy, and he's kind of like just breathing there in one space. If we look at our timeline here, window, we go to our timeline, dope sheet here, we could see that this guy actually has some keyframes associated with them. And I just realized something, that actually I really need to be doing this in another file over here. This our start file here, which actually already has the ring in it. So let's just quickly do that again, because this I have this ring that we're going to set on fire here again. So once again, File, Merge Objects. We're going to go into the motion capture files we've got down from Mixamo. Open up the idle. Click no here. Okay, and in our stuff, we're going to get rid of we're going to fix the material. And okay, so here he is. Now, so a lot of us are, so you'll see that what came in from Mixamo is a geometry file, which is this guy right here, and his rig, which is this stuff over here, which is, you know, basically his rig right there. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to click on the rig, or on the first element on the rig, because as we know, rigs are hierarchies of joints. Starts with the hips, goes to the spline, spline 2, spline, you know, goes up to the neck. You know, this bone's connected to that bone. This is a hierarchy of joints, which creates what's called a rig. So on the top hierarchy of joints, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go in the Animate menu. I'm going to choose Add Motion Clip. And when I do that, I'm going to name this motion clip called Idle, okay? And basically, it's going to apply it to this whole hierarchy of joints here. And what's going to happen is you'll see a little tag here, which is meaning we're going to be using the motion clip system. And the timeline has switched from the keyframe view, which is, this is our regular keyframe view here, okay, into the motion clip system, okay? And here's our motion clip. Here's our rig, which is this thing in the object, and here's our motion clip. Now that we're dealing with motion clips, it becomes a lot easier to do certain things. Like, for example, I could take the motion clip and I can move it to, like, let's say frame 60, let's say, and now the motion doesn't happen till frame 60. I can also take the motion clip, for example, and I can, like, stretch it out so things happen much slower, okay? Or I can speed it up, okay? So motion clips are actually really handy to work with. Let's bring in our second action here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead to the File menu. We're going to say Merge Objects. This is the second thing we got from Mixamo. It's called Idle to Sprint. Okay, we're going to click OK. And do we want to reassign included takes? No. Okay, so now we have two things. We have the first one we brought in, which is just his idle one. And we have sort of a new one in there. And the new one, he starts running, right? So I'm going to still be using the geometry and rig from the first one, so we're not going to bother fixing up his material, but I am going to create a motion clip from his rig, just like we did on the first one. So we're going to click on that rig. We're going to go over to the animate menu, and we're going to say add motion clip, and we're going to call this one idle to sprint. Okay? And now, if we look at our motion clip system here, we can see we have idle and idle to sprint, and we're going to delete this second one that we brought in, okay? And now with the idle to sprint motion clip that we made, we're going to drag it after the first one, okay? And what happens now is that this thing is it's going to start. He's going to be idling there, and then he's going to start running. Okay. Now you'll notice that between the first one and the second one, there's like a little pop. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we are going to drag the first one over the second one a little bit, and that's going to cause them to kind of blend into each other. Do you see that they sort of now blend into each other? So far, so good. Okay. Let's bring in the third. By the way, this probably should have finished loading already, but this is Mixamo. This is the library of motion clip data that we use. This is the character that we're using. They have several characters you can choose from. And if you just choose one of these motion clips, like, for example, dying, you can apply it to your characters over here. We just have a slow connection, but there's a lot of tutorials about Mixamo you can follow, but this is where I got all of these motion clips, like the dying one, okay? But anyway, so let's bring in the third one. We're going to say merge objects. We're going to go ahead now. We're going to bring in the third one, which is called jump. So we're going to choose that one. Here's the import settings. We're going to click OK. Do we want to reassign ticks? We say no, okay? And once again, here's its rig and its geometry. We're going to click on the rig. We're going to go over here to the animate menu. We're going to choose add motion clip. We're going to call this one jump. Okay, from start frame 0 to say 26. Okay, create motion clip on the whole hierarchy of joints. Okay, we're going to click OK. We're going to get rid of that one because we only really needed it to create the motion clip. So we're going to delete it. Okay, here's the third one that we've created. Okay, by the way, when you create these motion clips, if you right click them, you could save them to disk, like as, whatever you want to save them in. So let's say we'll save it into this folder, and it will save it as, we can like save this jump as a motion clip, not as a FBX file, and then we can use them later in other projects and so on and so forth. But so these are the three we've created so far. We're going to drag the jump after the idle to sprint. So we've got this like idling, we've got this idle to sprint, okay? And then there's going to be a problem here, because when we hit the jump, watch what's going to happen. It's going to pop back to the beginning and do the jump, okay? See that? So that's obviously not what we want to do. We don't want to pop him back to the beginning. We want him to jump from here. So how do we fix that? Well, what we're going to do is on the motion clip here, we're going to click on it, and under the Advanced tab, actually first what we're going to do, actually under the Advanced tab, there's this little thing called pivot. And what we can do is we can actually create a pivot, which creates a little pivot right at the first item in the hierarchy, which is his hips right here. Okay, that's one way we can create a pivot. The other way we can create a pivot, I'm going to get rid of this pivot that was just created, is we could just go into the animate menu and just create a pivot. See, we've created our own pivot right here, and this places it right at the center of the world, right there, in the center of the origin. And then we click on this motion clip under pivot, and we're just going to, let's rename this pivot to like jump pivot. Right? And then we're going to click on this motion clip in the Advanced tab. We're going to drag this jump pivot right over here. Okay? And now with that pivot, we can sort of tell this action or this motion thing where to happen. So I'm going to switch. Let's switch to kind of like a side view. We'll switch to this view right here. Okay, and we're going to drag this pivot, because the nice thing about this motion clip system is you see like these little ghost things. So this is the end of the run thing. We're going to drag it right here, sort of like where that happens. Okay, so now what happens is that we've got like the idle, and then he's going to start jumping, and then he's going to jump into his like jump. Now once again there's like a pop happening. There's like kind of like an unsettling transition between these two actions, okay? And no problem. All we have to do again is that we just need to like take this action and drag it over, let's say 5 frames over one, and you'll see there's like a little line that's saying that this is like a transition between those two motion clips. So now if you see that there's a nice smooth dissolve between the two actions, one to the other, okay? And then finally, when he gets to the other side, okay, what we want to have him do is we want to have him go ahead into like his like little silly dance. So let's bring that motion clip again. I mean that motion capture file we got from Mixamo. We go ahead, and here's, it's called Silly Dancing. The way you get them from Mixamo, by the way, is that you just, once you find the clip that you want to use, okay, you simply have to just click download. Like right now I chose this Capoeira pack or whatever. Actually, here's the Silly Dancing one. Why don't we use that one? So, and then all you have to do is you have to just click download, and then you'll be able to download them as an FBX file. 30 frames per second or 24 frames per section, 24 frames per second, whatever you want to do. So like I said, I've already done that, so we don't have to do that here. So we're going to bring in this Silly Dancing one here, say no, okay, and then do we want to reassign takes? No. All right, here it is, Silly Dancing. Okay, we're going to click on its rig where all the action is saved. And we're going to go to the Animate menu and say Add Motion Clip, and we're going to call this one Silly Dancing. What we're doing is we're taking its keyframes, and we're creating motion clips out of their keyframes to the whole rig hierarchy. You know, this bone's connected to that bone, the elbow's connected to the wrist, and we're saying, okay, we don't want to create the motion clip down in the hierarchy because it's going to ignore what's above it. It's only going to go down. So we want to create it on the first element of the hierarchy. And now once again we're done with that, we can delete that one because we're still using the rig and geometry from the first one. And here's the new one right here. And we're going to once again drag it right after this one. Okay, so, and once again the problem is that we get to the end of this and it pops back to the beginning, which we don't want to do that. So we'll go ahead and we will do that thing again where we go into the Animate menu, add another pivot. There we go for the pivot, and we'll call this Silly Dance, or we'll just call it Dance Pivot. Dance Pivot, right? And then we'll click on this motion clip. In the Advanced tab, we'll drag that pivot right in, okay? And once again, we'll bring this right, this dance pivot. Let's go to like a side view. Okay. And we'll drag this pivot over kind of like right over here. Okay. And then we will see that he's going to go ahead from his dancing into, from this jumping into that dance. And like once again, we've got this strange pop happening here. So we're just going to do the same thing where we overlap 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, and then he'll sort of like blend into that motion. Okay. So now we've got the whole action of his whole thing, and it's just using this motion clip system in Cinema 4D, which is a non-linear animation system. You might be mostly used to the keyframe system, but this system, which you create motion clips, is great for working with motion capture files. Whether you get them from Mixamo or whether you get them from Rococo or whatever motion capture you're happening to use, this motion clip system is excellent for that. So now that you have that, by the way, if we click all of these motion clips over here and we go to the basic and we hide the ghosts, okay, that's going to hide these little ghosting things. And if we hide the pivots, okay, now we just have him without the ghosts, which are great for, lining things up, but you don't need to see them after that. All right, so now we've got the action. Okay, now what it is that it's time to like set this thing on fire. Okay, so how do we go ahead and set this thing on fire? Okay, and that's what we're going to be using. Is we're going to be using Pyro, which is built into Cinema 4D. So how would we actually do that? So let's go ahead. This ring, by the way, was not created with anything really special. It was simply created with the torus object. And what we can do is I made it bigger and made the pipe radius smaller. And basically that's how I created the ring. It's not anything, no rocket science. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this torus over here. And we're going to right-click it, and under where it says simulation tags, there's something called a Pyro emitter. Okay? So we're going to click on that, and what we have is we have a little Pyro emitter tag here. Okay? Now, usually, when you create a Pyro emitter tag, you should get a Pyro output object in your view. I had deleted one from here, and it doesn't put it back in, and it really should. Usually you will. I'll show you how to get it in case you don't have a Pyro output object tag here. Object here. So, and the way you do, you just go to the edit menu, project settings, okay, under simulation, under Pyro, create output object, and there it is. So if you're dealing with Pyro, you need that Pyro output object as well as your tags. So usually you'll get it automatically. You don't have to worry about it. But if you don't, that's where you get it. So now, if I were to just hit play like this, what happens is that it takes a second for the simulation system to kick in, I guess. And then what happens is that this thing starts burning. Okay? But the thing is that this is like, that's not, first of all, that's a really big fire. And second of all, that's not how it was in the movie. Okay? What happened? I closed the movie again. If you see in the movie, what happens is that it starts burning from one part and it sort of comes up around the whole thing. Right? So the thing is that, so we don't want to, well, instead of doing a Pyro emitter tag onto this torus, what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of doing that Pyro emitter, we're going to do what's called a Pyro fuel tag. Okay? So what does the fuel tag do? What it is, I'll go back to the beginning and I'll press play. Okay? And it does absolutely nothing. Okay? Because what really happened is all we did was that it's like, you think of it as like we poured gasoline on this whole thing. So it's just sitting there with gas on it, and it doesn't burn yet. Why? Because we have to light it. We have to set it on fire. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to set it on fire with what? We're going to set it on fire with this little polygon right here. So on the little polygon right here, we're going to right-click that, and we're going to go to the simulation tags, and we're going to choose a Pyro emitter on that. Okay? We're going to put a Pyro emitter on that. Now, let me disable the torus one for a second because I don't want it to catch on fire yet. So I'm going to disable the fuel tag for a second. And if I were to play this, we get this like kind of like fire coming. That's like a really big fire. Okay, so I don't really want that. And the other thing is, so what I'm going to do first of all, another thing by the way is in the Pyro output tag, I'm going to lower the what's called the voxel size of the fire. The higher the voxel size, the more blurry and blocky the smoke looks. The lower the voxel size, the more detailed the smoke looks. Okay? So I'm going to lower the voxel size of the fire to 3, okay? So this will give me a little bit more detail in the file. By the way, what you're looking at is you're not looking at how the fire's really going to look. You're looking at a preview of it. When you render it in Redshift, then you'll see what the fire really looks like. So the other thing I'm going to do is on the Pyro emitter tag on the polygon, we're going to turn off, there's something called density and temperature, okay? So what density you could think of as smoke, temperature is fire. So we're going to turn off the density, okay? So now if we play it like that, you'll see now there's smoke and there's no fire, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to lower the thickness of that smoke on the polygon, okay? And what that's going to do is that is going to make the fire a lot smaller. As a matter of fact, it's like a tiny little flame now, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn back onto the torus. I'm going to re-enable the fuel tag. So now this thing is ready, and then if I hit play, okay, like that, it starts to think. Now, what kind of fire is this? This doesn't really look, this looks like more like a thermonuclear explosion, okay? So obviously there's things we need to do to this fire because this is not really looking great. But you could see actually it does start the fire to burn from that spot, okay? So on that fire, what we're going to do on the fuel tag, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to, let me try to remember, we're going to lower the thickness from 10 to 2, okay? So this whole thing is going to be a lot less thick. And under the fuel, we're going to set the fuel set. This is how much fuel is on the thing, okay? So we're going to let's change that to 2, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to play this now. And then as you can see now, there's a lot less, you know, stuff happening. But I don't really want to rely on this viewport thing anymore, okay? I want to start looking at like what this fire is really going to look like in Redshift, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, actually I have a floor here, so I'm just going to enable this floor. It's actually not this is a simplified version of that other file. And I'm going to turn on some lights, the lights that I have like a spotlight and I have a area light or whatever. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in the Redshift render view here, okay? And I'm going to hit, you know, I'm going to invoke the Redshift renderer, and there's no fire here, okay? So the thing is that why is there no fire here? Because we have to do something in order to get the fire so we can see it in Redshift. And what we have to do is we have to create what's called a Pyro volume material, okay? So we're going to type in our Pyro volume material, okay? And now we're going to drag that onto the Pyro output object, okay? And as soon as we do that, it starts rendering it in Redshift, okay? Now, there's too much smoke here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead into the Pyro output object under the Pyro tag, and where it says under the fuel combustion, where it says the density per fuel, that's how much smoke there is for the fuel, okay? We're going to change that to a 1.5. We're going to make half of it, okay? So now if I, let's say I go back to the beginning and regenerate the smoke, like back, you know, to like wherever it is over here, you can see that, well, there's less smoke, but, you know, that's fine, actually. I mean, I could try to lower it some more. That's okay. I could deal with that. Okay. So that works for me. So the thing is that the other thing is that, but you could lower it more if you want, like you could lower it to 1. Let's try lowering it to 1. And then we'll take a look at what that looks like. Okay, and now there's a little less, so we'll leave it at 1. Now the smoke's kind of like a little bit straight. Maybe I want a little more action in the smoke, make it a little bit more, you know, turbulent. So what we can do is we can go over here to the turbulence, of the smoke. And we could lower it, up it from like 2 to like, let's say 10. Okay? So now the smoke becomes a little bit more turbulent, and now we'll try to go ahead and we'll take a look at what that looks like. And it's just a little bit more action. If you look at the movie, like I said, you can see that there's a little bit more motion in the smoke and stuff like that. So now that we've done that, let's talk a little bit about, well, there's something else we can do. For example, if we look at this guy, right, and we sort of start dragging through it, we can see when he sort of jumps through the smoke, right, he kind of jumps through the smoke, but he doesn't affect the smoke at all, okay? Like usually if you jump through fire and smoke, maybe you push the smoke out a little bit or, you know, whatever. So what I'm going to do is for the guy, what I can do is I can right-click it, and then I can say, under simulation tags, I can make him what's called a collider. Okay, so now he has a collider tag on him. Now, for example, if I start playing it, you'll see that what happens is that, so the smoke gets made, the pyro is going to get made here, okay? And then at a certain point, it's going to run through it, and you can see that what happens is that, you see he's kind of like pushing the smoke and the fire out with him as he comes out, okay? So we definitely want to do that. Now, there's a little problem here, okay? Which is that, let's hide this for a second, is that if I were to scrub through this, you can see I can sort of scrub forward, although sometimes it's a little slow, but this has a good graphics card in it, so it's not that slow. But if I try to scrub backwards, nothing's happening, right? Like nothing's happening, you know, and then if I go over to here, then it's like kind of like messed up and whatever, okay? But I want to be able to scrub around, you know? Does anybody know how I can do that? What? Cache it, right? So I want to cache it. Now, what does that mean? I want to cache it. I want to get cash maybe for it? Not really, okay? What you need to do, although you do want to get cash for it eventually, but the thing is that what you want to do is I'm going to click on the Pyro output tag, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, before I do that, I do want to mention that in the Pyro volume material, if I were to go ahead and like, let's go ahead to over here, let's say, or here, hold on. We'll go over to about right here. And if I were to bring up our Redshift render view, let's say, and hit play. Well, I don't know, it's taking a minute for the fire to get there, but I think it's going to get there in a second when it's done with this. Sometimes this happens, it's kind of a weird thing. But, hang on 1 second. Oh, okay, maybe because I didn't start it from the beginning anyway. Oh, there it is. So, like, if you open this up, you can, on the Pyro volume material, like you can, for example, if you want the smoke to be kind of like, you know, greenish or something, you could make colored smoke. You could change the density of the smoke to like the scatter coefficient, make it thicker or whatever, or more bright. You could fool around with these types of things. So, but we'll make it kind of the smoke to be kind of like a little bit of like a rusty or a dusty color instead of white. Okay, doesn't matter, whatever. So I just wanted to just to show you that you can jump in and change like different things with the Pyro volume material. So getting back to what we were talking about before, which was caching. So how do we cache? So this way we'll be able to scroll through, you know, and it'll happen really fast, almost instantaneously. And that is, we go to the Pyro output object under the cache tab, okay? And we're going to say cache the scene, okay? So what that's going to do, we'll click cache scenes. It says store the files at the project location. So we'll say, sure, okay, do that. And what's happening is that it's going through the whole simulation, okay? And what it is that on the disk, it's creating for every frame a VDB file, okay? A VDB is like a volumetric data file for every frame of this file. And what's nice is that after you finish this cache, you can give that to somebody who uses another program that uses VDBs, like Houdini or whatever else, you know, maybe Unreal, and they will be able to like bring this VDB even if they don't have Pyro or whatever, and they'll be able to have your explosions, because you can do a lot of things besides setting rings on fire with Pyro. You could make explosions, you could make smoke puffs, you know, you could make rocket, you know, things. You could do it because there's a lot of velocity, you know, things, all kinds of things you can change. So basically what so you'll be able to do that. So anyway, it's already cached now. So now, for example, if I were to, like, you know, scroll this, number one, see how fast it is, and number two, you know, I can go ahead and you know, go backwards and forwards and things like that. And now, as you can see over here, by the way, this little polygon here is still on, so it sets this thing on fire, you know, but we don't need it to go on. So what we could do is we could actually tell it to, like, as soon as it sets it on fire, we can go to this little output tag, keyframe the enabled, go one frame later, and keyframe it so it's not enabled. Now, but it's already cached, okay? So what you really need to do then, did I keyframe it not enabled? No. Okay, so, okay, I made two keyframes there. So what I really need to do is I need to cache the scene again, okay? So I think I just hit cache it again. Yes, okay? And now it's recaching it, and you see that it went off, that little polygon now turned off. And so then that's doing that. Now, so the fact that I didn't show the Mixamo stuff has led me to be a little bit faster than I thought I was. Does anybody have any questions so far about Pyro? Okay, so I'm a little forward. So let me tell you something that what's really cool with the, so there we go. Here's our thing now. And basically, what we can do is, I wanted to show you a little bit more about the motion clip system because, like I said, it's very cool. For example, what you can do is have him that he's running, and then up in the air, like maybe over here, right? You want him to sort of switch to like a slow motion type of a thing. Okay, maybe like in the middle of of his jump. He starts jumping, and then like maybe over here you want him to go into a slow motion. Okay, so what you could do over here is you can actually go into this jump, right click it, and say cut connect, and click right here. And now what I've done is I've cut his motion clip into two parts. Okay, and so what I can do is on the second part, okay, I can go ahead and actually I have to get out of this cut connect mode, and I can maybe drag these two over a little bit. Oh, I have to drag it from here. Okay, maybe drag it to over here. And then what happens is that I can now take this motion clip and I can stretch it. So now that's slowed down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to overlap them too. Okay? Or no, actually, I don't want to overlap them. I'm sorry. So now, as you can see, he's going normal speed until he hits that point, and now all of a sudden he's gone into a slow motion mode. Okay? So that could be really cool, because, like, you know, to have him all of a sudden switch into a slow motion mode. You know, he's going normal speed, and then he's in slow motion as he jumps through the thing, and then he goes back to normal motion. And those are some of the type of things you can do with the motion clip system. You can also, for example, now another thing you can do, by the way, is I wasn't really planning on showing you this, but since I didn't show the other stuff, I'm a little ahead, is that we can add what's called a Mixamo control rig to this character. And the Mixamo control rig is, like, really useful. Because what you can do is, here's how you do it. We can go to the character menu, we can go to and make what's called a character object, okay? And in our character object, we're gonna choose this over here and make it a Mixamo control rig, okay? And we're gonna build out this rig. Now, for those of you who know about rigging, you know that to create a whole control rig, so I'm going to make the hands and the arms, okay? I'm going to go back to the pelvis. I'm going to make the legs, okay? And what we've just done, let me hide the actual other character, because what we've just done is we've created a whole character rig that has all kinds of really useful things like IK controls and whatever. And what we want to do is we want to fit this rig onto our other rig so we can add another layer of animation to the Mixamo motion capture data, okay? And this is how you would do it. So what we would do on this control rig, okay, is that we go ahead and we say, we go to the adjust mode. Let me show the other guy. And I just realized that for this to work, all of his joints, you notice that all of his joints have what are called a namespace besides the names of his joints. So this has Mixamo rig 6 : hips. Actually, for this to work, it's just supposed to say Mixamo rig. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the first thing in the rig. We're going to select all of the children. So we're selecting his whole rig of the other rig, not the top rig, okay? And we're going to use the renaming tool. We're going to over to the naming tool, and we're going to say replace Mixamo rig 6 with Mixamo rig. We're going to replace the name. So you notice that I've just changed the name of all of his joints from Mixamo rig 6 to Mixamo rig, okay? Now I'm going to go back to the control rig, okay? And then if I just go to the adjust menu, you'll see that the Mixamo control rig has snapped to the position of the Mixamo rig, okay? Automatically. So now what we're going to do is there's one more step we need to do. We need to go to the animate thing, okay? We need to say retarget all. And I'll show you why I'm doing this in a minute. And we're going to go over to the character geometry under where it says weight transfer. We're going to drag that in, and we're going to say transfer weights. Okay, that wasn't really supposed to happen. Transfer weights. Okay. Oh, because I forgot to do something. Okay, so let's undo that. Okay, let's undo that. Actually, how much of this can I do? I think I just broke it. Okay, let me get rid of this. Okay. Actually, one second. Yeah, I know exactly what I did. I'll show you this in a new project. Okay, this is really important, actually. I'm going to bring in the silly dancing thing that we brought in from Mixamo. Okay, so let me fix the material actually here. Okay, so we've got this silly dancing thing, and we're going to increase the amount of time to about 120 frames. Okay, so we've got this thing. So we've got this Mixamo rig making this guy dance. And what we want to do is we want to add the Mixamo control rig on top of this rig in order for us to keyframe different motions on top of this animation. So let's just do that one more time. Character menu, character object. We're going to switch it to the Mixamo control rig. Okay? We're going to create the root of the rig. Why did he go into a T-pose? That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay. So let me hide him. Okay, let's go ahead. Character object, character. Okay, Mixamo control rig. Okay, root, pelvis. Okay, arms, hands. Okay, pelvis, legs. Okay, there's our Mixamo control rig. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to force that rig onto the position of the other rig. Okay, but this is what I didn't do the other time, is on the Mixamo rig, okay, we want to get it back into its T-pose. And the way we get it to its T-pose is we hide the animation from that thing. So you see, we just hid the animation from the rig, so it's not animating anymore. See, I'm dragging my thing, he's not animating anymore. So, and this is what I didn't do before. I need to click on its weight tag, and I need to go reset, I need to go set bind pose. He goes back into his T-pose, okay? And then I need to go ahead and in the Mixamo rig, okay, what happens is that, oh man, okay, hold on a second. I need to go ahead and go to my adjust. I wasn't planning on showing this. This is why, okay. I need to go ahead and go to my adjust tab. Right, that's what I need to do, adjust that. Yes. Now go to the animate tag, and then I say retarget all. I'll drag in the rig, and I'll transfer the weights. Then I turn this back on. Oh man, okay. Anyway, you know what? I wasn't planning on showing that anyway. Does anybody have any questions about the Pyro or the motion clip system or anything like that? As a matter of fact, if you want to know about the Mixamo control rig, I just created a 6-part series on Cineversity called Motion Capture Workflows. Okay? 6 parts. Very concise. It goes all into the Mixamo control rig, how to set it up, and what you can do is you can add a layer of keyframeable animation on top of your Mixamo motion capture, so you can actually, for example, if his feet's in the wrong place, you know, when he's doing the motion capture, you could move the foot back to another place. If his feet slide through the floor, you put them back up to where they need to be, so on and so forth. Very powerful thing to use, the Mixamo control rig. Look it up. It's on Cineversity.
Awesome. Let's give another round of applause for Joe Herman. Awesome. And Joe also has a number of different things on Cineversity beyond that series on the control rig. Extremely powerful. So you can check all that out. Just go to maxon.net, go to Learn, and you'll be able to check out Cineversity and all the other different training tutorials, as well as replays over the years from NAB, NAB East, you name it, it's up there.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're going to be getting close to our very last presenter right after this break, Aaron Stern. So stay tuned.